What we're doing here is we're doing a lot more distance learning teaching with kids in the 8th and the 10th grades when they're reading books like The Diary of Anne Frank. And since the 12th Division, 12th Armored Division was actually a Holocaust Liberator Division, we want to talk to anybody who was there and get their account of what they saw. And so, were you ever around, or did you see the camp?
Yeah, unfortunately I was. And all I can remember about that, which is about mine, these huge logs been 15 high and open wide. And when I looked in there, I thought body piled up in the oven. It was people. And you get all this flesh and you feel it in the air. That's the one picture I can't get out of my mind. It was a horrible sight. And I think you could ask anybody in the 12th Armored about those gates, they'll tell you the same thing. Naked bodies, throwing them in the oven like a piece of cord of wood. And it was horrible. Yeah. But we rounded up quite a few of the Germans that were running this. I could still see where you get out of the gates, there was a stone road on the hill, and one of these German officers was running up, because he was up the top of the hill running. One of our guys down on his knees, rifle, and killed him. Yeah. It was horrible. But it's over. Well, anyway, I don't know if that helped you any, but
Okay, so the tape is rolling again, and
okay, where do you want me to hear here?
you can just talk to me. A lot of folks, when they stare into the lens, just kind of freeze up. What we want to do, we show a diorama to a lot of students, and we always ask them that question: if you were in this situation, would you try to be an action hero, or would you surrender? And we'd like you to tell us about the evening.
Where would you like us to begin?
Well, your command post had been destroyed. You had relocated to the fruit cellar.
That's right.
And take it from there.
All right, we were relocated that cellar in the afternoon, late afternoon, because things were getting too hot and we need to have some place to go. Moved the radios, the equipment, and some of the other officers down there. And he directed what activity there was from that point. And as the runner sent out from that, what was it, fruit cellar, I guess it would be, in the barn, and through the night. And when it became apparent that they wanted to withdraw, but couldn't, then he at least thought that he could draw the units back wherever they were. And part of my job was to find those units and tell them to follow me to the sea, which was great fun, as you can imagine, because I always felt that we were being watched all the time and waiting to find out where it was. And finally, they came in and they got closer and closer. And while we were in CP, he had asked for withdrawal permission, and that withdrawal permission was denied. I offered why, but maybe looking back in history, maybe there was a reason that to stay there. I think probably we could make arguments both ways, but now, if it was just for the safety of the men, then at the time we felt it was a wrong decision. Looking back in history, maybe it was right. And that all through the early into the late night. The last time for permission was a call at 10 o'clock at night. And there would still have been a chance. We were drawing the units back at that time. We're no longer in positions out through the town.
Now, about how much were left at that point? You had been.
You know, I've been asked so many times, and I don't really know. I just don't really know. Sometimes we would find a squad. One time we'd find 2 squads. Seldom did we find a whole unit, or a platoon, or anything in place. And as far as I know, I was the only runner by them for the base. Busy, trying to be in the dark, death at the same time. And that's the time artillery started to made it doubly hard. But I really don't know how many were left. I sat there when we got back to the CP and those men around the CP, I would guess maybe 30 at the most that I saw. Might have been more.
When it comes and Major Lowe has to make a call, whether to surrender or to fight to the last, what was going through your mind as you witnessed this?
That was pretty broad in my mind. I was with him when he made the call, and when he told me to stay, and they would help in the morning. And his famous last word, which was not always the words that was in the history, but I can tell you what they were quoting, was saying, "Let these guys sleep because they'll be here." And so at that time, I was prepared to die. I thought I was coming, because I was not in with them all the time. I was out in the little shed right behind him when the grenades were coming in. Anything. That's cellar with. I don't think he hesitated. I remember him saying something to Carl Helton that got to decide what to do. Because he was the commanding officer. It's his decision, and whether the right decision right now, I would say yes. Of course, he made the right decision. But I think it was a choice between death and life. It was free. But it wasn't a choice between death and life. It was a choice between death, sure death, and maybe life. That was the other part he had to consider. And he chose that. I suppose I had to agree with him at that time. There were times after that when the survivor's guilt set in. You begin to wonder if it was right, if it was really, because sometimes, and I'm survivor's guilt. I may be one of the few that will admit it, but it was very, very long and lasted for years and years and years. So I felt at that time he made the right. But you know, after he made that decision, I don't remember being afraid at all. Really afraid. I was so tired that I was ready to die. I think I'd made peace with my maker at the time. And when the white phosphorus grenade went off and the other grenade went off, well, I've lived through this, maybe I'll live through that too. And frankly, we were kind of surprised when we went out that we were dealing with a different set of soldiers. We didn't deal with professional soldiers, and the treatment was not that bad personally, like as far as trying to scare you or anything like that. Didn't happen. But I I think he made the right decision. I think we'd been there long. I think we had accomplished the mission, because the history book I read now that it was 12 that was given the blunting that whole drive. And if we had withdrawn, maybe we wouldn't have. Look at history and say we were part of it. We lost a lot of people and we were sad about that. That's what we were doing. We followed orders. Orders were right. Kind of a question. So.
Well, thank you, sir. By the way, one more question, extra credit thing. If kids say one thing, just one thing, what would put in your mind? What would you tell them when they're studying, learning about this period of history?
You're never sure what's going to happen. You're never sure what you're going to do. But once you make the decision, go and make it. And stick with it. So I think that was a strong thing as I okay? Have a mission. Have a mission. And